All right, Christine, I'm so excited that you're here today. You are the VP of Human Resources at Coca-Cola Consolidated, and you've been there how many years?
I've been at Coke Consolidated 11 years.
Oh, 11.
Mm-hmm.
What was the 21?
I have been in the Coke system for 21 years. So I worked for Coca-Cola North America before I came to Coke Consolidated. And then I worked at another bottler in the Midwest before I went to Coke North America.
I don't think I knew any of that.
Yeah. So I went bottler, company, and then back to the bottler.
So help me understand this whole Coke world. So I met Frank over a year ago, but I didn't understand. I thought Coke Consolidated was Coke, but what's the deal there? Like, help me understand that.
Yeah. So most people are very confused by that.
Yes.
I think sometimes even my closest friends and family who I've talked to a lot about this are still confused. So I'll focus on the U.S. So within the U.S., there are a handful, and it's really just a handful of large bottlers. Coca-Cola Consolidated in the U.S. is the largest. So we have distribution rights across 14 states, and we kind of, I'll call it the Southeast, but we push really into the Midwest, depending on what folks define as the Midwest. So we've got 14 states plus Washington, D.C. And so that's kind of our territory right there.
Okay.
All South Carolina, North Carolina, Tennessee, Indiana, Ohio, and so on and so on. And so we're the largest in the U.S. But then there's a handful of other large bottlers, and then there's a handful of really small bottlers. I think there's probably across the U.S. 60 bottlers total.
Wow.
Yeah, you wouldn't think that, but...
especially when you guys are like 14.
But we even have smaller bottlers kind of in our territory, kind of right in the middle. So like there's a Rock Hill Coca-Cola bottler that sits right in the middle of our territory. So even though we have all those states, our territory isn't 100% contiguous with each other because they
won't give up.
So what we always say in the business is bottlers are sold, not bought. And so you don't go, because they're family run, you don't go to them like a small bottler like that, like Rock Hill, as I mentioned. You don't go to them and ask to buy them. That's highly offensive and not, copacetic in the bottler community. So Coke bottlers are sold when the family is ready. They don't have a next generation to pass it on to, or the next generation decides they're not interested in doing this and they want to go off and do something else. So bottlers are sold, not bought.
So you have Coke Atlanta.
Right? Think marketing, think product development, those big, Super Bowl ads that you would see. You see that polar bear around Christmas. Hopefully you saw, I don't think you're
branding
logos. Like, I don't think you're much on Instagram, are you?
No.
But like you would have seen some of our new product lines start to drop over the weekend.
That's all Atlanta.
Yes, that's all Atlanta.
And you guys do more regional, local advertising. And then you guys take the recipe, the secret, if you've been to the museum.
Yes, if
everything that's behind the safe. They give you that and then you distribute it.
We make it. So we've got manufacturing facilities, and we make, so we purchase either the rights or we purchase the syrup from them.
Okay.
And then we have manufacturing facilities where we make it. And then we have our own fleet of trucks. We distribute it out through our territory.
And that is not owned by Coke Atlanta.
Correct.
It just blows my mind because every time you see a Coke, you're thinking, that's Coke, and it's not. So you guys are like a dealership. If I were to associate this to like the cars, you've got the GM, and then you have the dealerships that aren't owned by GM all over the world. And they buy the cars from GM, and GM's out. And now the dealer has to make its own profit. So you guys, I don't know how the pricing, we don't need to get into that.
Yeah, I was going to say, we won't get into all that.
But it's similar.
Yeah,
so
similar.
You get the main product, but they make the product. You buy the rights to make the product, and then everything's on you from that point.
Yeah. So they have the syrup. We make the product. So they have some key ingredients that we will get from them. And some of it we make on our own.
But you don't know or they don't.
Yeah, we won't get into all the specifics. But even some of those smaller bottlers that don't have the large facilities like we do, So Rock Hill is an example. Many of the other smaller bottlers can't make everything on their own. They can just distribute and sell. They even buy product from us as well.
Awesome.
It's
Well,
an intricate network, and it's incredibly complex.
it
People
is.
think it should be a lot easier, but it's incredibly complex, but it works really, really well.
Well, I love it. First time I met Frank, I was blown away with the construction, like the makeup of Coke, and then really digging into like the organization of Coca-Cola Consolidated. And that's really the makeup of today's show. We really want to talk about faith in corporate America. You guys are a family-run company, although much bigger than family. Largest employer in North Carolina, right?
I don't know if we're the largest employer in North Carolina. I don't know that fact, Paul.
You're in the top 3.
We would definitely be in the top 3. I don't know if we're number 1. I'll have to follow up with you on that one. I probably should know that, but I don't.
Very, very large and rated one of the best companies to work with. Regardless of the size, you guys are just known in the space of just effectively run from the, not just, I wouldn't say the customer. I'm not talking about from the customer standpoint. I'm talking about from the actual employees. They love the environment there. And I knew about Coke Consolidated long before I ever met you or Frank or anybody over there. And then when I met all you guys, I'm like, well, no wonder why you guys are such an amazing place to work for. So I'd really like to get into the faith aspect of this company, and let's get personal right out of the gate with you. Share like a pivotal moment where your faith really affected a corporate decision or a business decision in your role, because your role is very important. You have a lot of people underneath you. I mean, you basically control the human resources, right? Or you shepherd the entire flock, so to speak, of that company.
I think shepherd's a good word for it.
So how has your faith impacted what you do there or a big decision?
So let me give your listeners a kind of feel for how big we are. So I talked about the geographical territory. So we have about 17,000 teammates, and that makeup is, corporate teammates, that's frontline teammates. But for those 17,000, probably 75% of those teammates are truly frontline teammates. They're drivers, they're merchandisers, they're working on a manufacturing line. There's, so very heavy frontline. We do feel very family run. We are the only publicly traded bottler in the United States. And so the family does hold a large share of the shares, but we are publicly traded. And so we do have different responsibilities, as we get through the conversation. So I want to tee that up so your listeners understand kind of who we are. So for me,
very big in scope.
Yes. So for me, here's what I'll tell you. I don't think I can think of like one aha moment where I felt my own personal purpose making such a pivotal impact in the organization because of my own beliefs. But what I will tell you is I can't put a finger on one, but I could put many fingers on many. And so what I think is most rewarding. So what I think is most rewarding is each and every day I'm supported by our company, by our leadership, by Frank, by Dave Katz, our president and COO, and by our executive
when we say
team.
Frank, I should have specified that earlier. He's the owner.
Yes, Frank Harrison.
And CEO, is that his role?
Yes, chairman.
Chairman. So he controls a lot, although he doesn't run. I mean, I don't know.
He's involved in the operations for sure. Still very present with the leadership team and the board. He plays a very, very active role. But he's got, trusted advisors.
Very amazing team.
Yeah, it's an amazing team.
So when we say the name Frank, we're referring to the owner.
Yes, Frank Harrison. But anyways, so again, not one kind of moment that it's like, wow, I really feel my faith and, my personal and professional lines just really like colliding in like this big episodic moment. But I think, why no? Every single day that I get to make decisions that positively impact our teammates. And so as the head of HR, 17,000 people that I'm shepherding, we make the right decisions by our teammates. We have a purpose, and that purpose starts with to honor God in all we do. And people,
which I might have ripped off because I absolutely love that.
Yeah, I mean, please, the best form of flattery is what
when somebody copies it.
Yeah. But the decisions we make from a people standpoint, how we write policies, how we invest in teammate total benefits, we do it to be God honoring. And that is where I feel like I can really show up and be my best self from a personal standpoint. And I can bring that 100% of my best self to work and really kind of collide personal and professional goals. And that feels really, really good each and every day.
Yeah. I mean, when I think of we're a mom and pop small company, and I don't have a whole lot of fear about wearing my faith on my sleeve,
right?
Talking about God in a meeting, bringing up the importance of a spiritual walk, bringing up the name of Jesus. And I know that can be shunned in corporate America.
Yeah.
I don't get that feeling with Coca-Cola Consolidated, where, talking to anybody in leadership over there, it's not taboo at all. If anything, it's the norm to have a conversation. You're not pushing anything down anybody's throat. You're just saying, well, if all's fair, in equality, in whether you're talking about race or you're talking about anything in the realm of equality, Christianity is also included.
That's right.
So, if you want to be Catholic, if you want to be Christian, if you want to be Muslim or anything, you're allowed to talk and have conversation around anything like that. They don't push anything, but they don't shy away from what they believe either.
That's right.
And that's what I love about Coke Consolidated. And I think that's what everybody likes about it.
And you can do that, and you can do that legally. And we may or may not get this conversation to maybe talk about T Factor as the conversation goes. I think you're familiar with T Factor. But as a publicly traded company of our size, and I will put a little plug in because you said kind of around North Carolina, people talk about us as a great place to work. We just had one of those conversations this morning. I'm going to need to get you more on Instagram.
Not going to happen.
Yeah, but sure. we just put out some ads this morning. We were just nominated by both Forbes and Fortune as a great place to work. And so awesome. We've gotten that kind of multiple times. And probably a lot of your listeners may or may not know this, but that is, you get those nominations because they do teammate surveys. They do employee surveys. So that's not me as the head of HR putting in a submission talking about, all the great things we do. Mm-hmm. It's teammate feedback. And so that's honoring to us, to the company, and to our purpose when our teammates are speaking about us that way.
I definitely want to end with T Factor and explain what that is and how you can learn more about that at the very end. But tell me about the impact that Coke is having on corporate America from a Christian standpoint. And this is probably going to spur on the T Factor, but we'll try to hold that back. But
I probably will go there because it ties in just perfectly with that. So T Factor, for your listeners that may or may not know, T Factor stands for transformational factor. Mm-hmm. And it is something that Frank, as we mentioned, has started up because of his passion and belief and knowledge that you can lead with a purpose that starts with to honor God in all we do. And you can do it legally, and you can do it respectfully. And it's good for the company, it's good for the people, and it's good for growth. And so Frank and team started up T Factor, Transformational Factor. And the purpose of it is to go out and teach other organizations how you can bring this into the workplace. It talks about culturally, of course, a lot, but it talks about legally because people are scared. People are hesitant. Whether it is a public or private company, especially if it's a publicly traded company, people get very uncomfortable and nervous about that from a leadership standpoint, even if they're very personally aligned with it. It can be uncomfortable. And so it's a half-a-day training. So in 2023, just as an example, we put 3,000 organizations through T Factor.
Can you name drop any?
You know who you are. But it's large. So no.
I know names that were in it too.
You can, but I'm not going to. But So 3,000, CEOs and significant leaders of publicly, privately held
Let's
companies.
just say there, publicly traded, humongous name brand companies that every listener would understand.
That's right. Your listeners would know the names of these companies.
Yes.
Some they might not, but some of them they definitely would. And I think from 2023, like 30% of the companies, they're international. They've got global reach, scope, and scale. And so some of them may be smaller, mom and pop, North Carolina, South Carolina companies, some, but it's got a large footprint.
Is there any cost to do this?
Well, sure. There's always costs to do this. We incur the cost of the production. We ship books to, the participants. We do all the marketing for it, but
is there any cost for our participants?
Travel, so if they want to come in and attend it live, they can travel. And we've had folks come in from all over the world.
But they don't have to pay for this.
No. And so they can come in, or we offer it virtually. And so we're really pushing virtually. Our goal, I said we hit 3,000 of these organizations in 2023. Our goal in 2024 is 10,000. So that's the kind of that power of multiplication that we really want to spread that word and help people understand. I'll tell you where most companies start, and it's where we started, is with chaplains. And so chaplains are non-denominational.
Yeah.
They can kind of really meet employees where they are. And we started with chaplains. And I wasn't with the company when we first started with chaplains, but folks that were here at the time will tell this story. The first place we put chaplains in, I think, was in one of our plants in Tennessee. And within 6 months, the feedback that we were getting is like, if you pull these chaplains out, we are going to have like a riot on our hands. And so again, they come in, they're non-denominational. They'll talk about teammates, it could be marriage, it could be struggles with children, it could be drug abuse, alcohol abuse, it could be a parent's dying, they've gone bedside at the hospitals. They meet our teammates where our teammates are.
And they just roam around.
They roam around. Yeah. They'll say hello. They're not going to force themselves on anybody, but by being there and being visible and having that open door, people are hurting. And this is real. Life is not easy. And so having them there, it's really made an impact on our teammates. And so now we have them everywhere. And that's usually where a lot of the companies will start. They'll start with some chaplains.
I saw a video years ago about that whole thing. I would imagine Coke put it out. I watched it in C12. And about the impact that the chaplaincy had made specifically there, and then how it spread through the whole organization. Because C12 is a big proponent of the same company that you guys have engaged with.
Corporate Chaplains of America. Yeah.
We've never done it here because we're such a small company.
Right.
But, I saw the impact immediately, and you just saw the faces because they interviewed people. And that's as an important aspect of my job as doing my job, knowing that I can come here, talk to this individual and confide in them, and that you could just see the passion that they're like, I love where I work because I get this guy, this gal that I can chat with.
Well, most of us spend more time at work than we do at home. Unfortunately. And we always tell our teammates, and this is what people want to experience. And especially as the next generations are coming into the workforce, they want this more so, I'd say, than some of the generations that are getting ready to retire from the workforce. They want and expect to bring their whole selves to work. I need to find a company where I'm not just bringing a little bit of myself to work each and every day for however many hours I'm there, or whether I'm home-based online. I need to show up and bring my whole self. And like I said, life is messy. And sometimes whole self brings pain and struggles and suffering. And to have a chaplain there to help you, walk through that and just have an ear to talk to, even, they're not going to solve the problems, but it's really made a difference.
So I want to just dig in there real quick. I mean, there's 17,000 employees. You've got 17,000 stories. You've got 17,000 problems. You got 17,000 different situations to make happy. I mean, running a household of kids is nearly impossible to make everybody happy. I can't even imagine what it would be like at 17,000. And I'm not calling employees kids, but we're all human.
Yeah.
how do you create an environment, where your employees love you so much that they vote you on Forbes, whatever? Like, how is that evolved at Co-Consolidated, where you have that many people that love the majority, and everybody who's ever dug in to Co-Consolidated hears the same thing? It's an amazing environment. The staff, the team, the leadership loves its employees. Like, how did you build that? Like, how did that become such a reality? Is it the faith aspect? Is it the faith in leaders? Like, where's that?
Yeah.
What gets the glory there?
Yeah. Well, let me tell you this. We are far from perfect.
Yes.
So I say that
Probably one of the reasons why you guys do so well, because that's the first thing that comes out of your mouth.
we are far from perfect. We have lots of opportunity. And as the head of HR, sometimes I will joke, we want to create a workplace that people can bring their whole selves to work. And sometimes my little snide side joke is sometimes I wish a few folks would just bring a little less, just a little less of that to work.
Says every leader everywhere. Just leave that thing at home.
Just a little bit of that. Just leave that little bit at home. But anyways, so it's a good question. So starting to preface it with, we're not perfect. Not all of our teammates come to work every day, loving it, butterflies and,
Did you notice what I did with the Coke slogan right there? Wasn't it loving it? Isn't that?
Open happiness. Yes, open happiness. So not every employee comes to work every day ready to open happiness, So here's what I would tell you. Kind of starting on the non-glory path, and I'll work this back around. We take very seriously how we train, equip all of our managers. So working in an organization like we are, what you'll often hear and is kind of common thread is people don't leave companies. People usually leave their manager. They're not feeling supported. They're not getting developed. They feel like they're having a struggle. Their manager's not hearing them, not helping them, not present, whatever it is. So a lot of times when people leave companies, aside from, the commute is too far or the work is too hard, stuff like that. From a true experience standpoint, the kind of quote is they don't leave companies, they leave managers. So we spend a lot of time. We've got a lot of really good management development programs. We spend a lot of time, money, and effort into helping make sure we've curated and developed really, really good leaders. Part of that leadership development does sit under our purpose. So kind of bringing it back to the glory. So again, the purpose starts with to honor God in all we do. Mm-hmm. Underneath that, and I wish I would have brought a copy of it to kind of put up, but underneath that, we have kind of our core values.
And there's a bunch of them.
Yeah, there's 10. So accountability, courage and conviction, consistency, discipline, honesty and integrity, humility, morality, optimism, respectfulness, and supportiveness. Those 10.
Are you nervous that
for a minute?
Don't miss it. I was like, oh no. She's like the most important person for this one.
So what people will sometimes say, and I'll give you a couple things that kind of the God piece catches in. When we hire people or people are looking to come join us and we talk about our purpose. In the interview, we talk about our purpose. When we make an offer, they bring up, well, I don't honor God. I'm this, I'm that, I'm the other. You don't have to honor God to work at Coca-Cola Consolidated. We welcome all. But those 10 core values that I just listed underneath that's it. Those are non-negotiable. Anything to do with your faith, but they are part of our purpose statement. It is how we want our organization to run, is how we expect our organization to run, and they are non-negotiable. They are biblical, though. And so if you are doing all of those things, if you as an individual don't honor God, that's okay. But it helps us as an organization by operating that way, achieve our vision, which is to honor God. And so, again, you don't have everybody coming to...
Give me some chills over here. That was a really good response.
You don't have everybody coming to work every day, just, again, butterflies and rainbows. But we pour into those folks and we feel like what we do, policies, benefits, pay, we're fair. We look at everything, and we do have a bottom line to balance, but we look at it and we want to be fair and we want to be good to our employees and know that they are coming in, have a good place to work, have a safe place to work, have fair benefits, and can make an honest day's wage when they're with us and be treated well. So
I love it.
yeah.
So let's get into another little hot topic. How do you address diversity and inclusion within Coke, considering its strong Christian foundation? Let me set that up a little bit more. When I see even the acronym DEI, there's a part of me on the inside that just cringes, and it's not because I'm a Christian and I'm racist or whatever belief there is out there in not even corporate America, just on the media, that if you're a Christian, you're automatically a bigot.
Yeah.
Which I don't even understand that, because the Bible doesn't preach anything close to that. The Bible is very wide open. And there was a commercial that was played during the Super Bowl that was kind of controversial, and it showed Jesus washing the feet of all these crazy people. And even my kids were like, "What is this?" And they showed all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
And I was sat back and I was like, that was amazing. Like, the message behind that was so good, because it showed Jesus washing the feet.
Well, it showed people washing other people's feet.
Yeah. Well, the symbology was that a Christian, a believer, the model that Jesus left, we are serving, we are putting ourselves down on the ground and serving and taking care of and washing somebody's feet. And somebody who can't stand feet, I hate, it's the most disgusting part of the human body, to do that is incredible.
The greatest among him is the servant.
Yes. So how do you address DEI from a Christian standpoint in corporate America as a publicly traded company?
Yeah. I could go down that Super Bowl ad for a little bit, because it did get some controversy around it.
It did.
Around who was doing the feet washing.
It wasn't. And so I saw Jesus, so maybe it wasn't.
Yeah. And it was just disappointing how that got very twisted for the strong, powerful message that it should have been.
Corporate media just doesn't want the Christian thought. At least it appears that way. Because how could you rip on a man who literally died for his sins? How can you rip on people who literally will give up and sacrifice their entire life to go share a message, to share people or to serve people? And they're, I couldn't get it. Even people in circles that I run that are good Christians, they're like, "Did you see that? It was disgusting." I'm like, "What?" Like, step back for a second. The message, and they're like, "Well, the company that paid for it isn't a good company." I'm like, but the message is great. Like, who cares?
I love
that
the
point,
message.
Yeah, I love the message.
This isn't what you asked about, but we're talking about washing feet. So Frank will share this message. I think he shares it in T Factor. But Frank's one and only son passed away. Yeah. And one of the last moments that Frank had with him, Frank washed his feet. And so, they talk about the sorrow of losing a child, and I can't
that son passed away.
Yeah, I can't even begin to relate to that. Yeah. But that last memory, one of those last memories that he has with James, he washed his feet. And
he was just getting ready to go on that trip.
Yeah, he was just getting ready to, go and serve and mission.
And how that conversation came down and how Frank approached him about it was so incredible. If you could get to hear that testimony from Frank.
So for your listeners, go join T Factor and you'll get to hear the story.
It is incredible.
It is incredible. But I think that encapsulates right there. Quite honestly, that commercial and plus that story about Frank is, we talk a lot at Consolidated about being a servant leader. And so I talk about all the things we do to develop our managers and our leaders. We talk a lot about serving and what being a servant leader is. I'm getting ready to have my whole HR team in a meeting here in Charlotte next week. And I was writing my opening, and I do kind of like a word of the year every year. And this year it's actually 2 words. So I guess it's not a word of the year, and it's servant leadership. And so I'm opening with my meeting next week with that. So pivoting back into DEI, which is the question you asked. So here's what I would tell you. We have a head of DE&I at the company. We have a director of DE&I. She's really teammate engagement and experience, but up under that DE&I sits. But we've always had that. This is not something that, because it's become popular and mainstream, that we've, hopped on board. If you look to our purpose, I talk about it starts with to honor God in all we do. It goes to our core values, and then it goes to these set of statements, these kind of we will statements, these things that we will do and we will be. It talks about DE&I in those statements. And this dates back to, I don't think we've tweaked it for 10, 11, 12 years. And so it has always been part of who we are and what we do. So this is not what, we're just catching on to because it's mainstream. Teammate engagement and experience is something we've always been passionate about because it is part of our purpose. That's how we engage our teammates. And so, listen, at Co-Consolidated, everybody is welcome, regardless of your religious walk, regardless of your age, regardless of your gender, regardless of anything that would fall under that space. And we want all of our teammates to come in and have a great experience with us. We have a framework, what we call it seat at the table. And so in a lot of our buildings, you'll see our purpose on the wall in all of our buildings, but you should see in many of our buildings what is called our seat at the table framework. And the picture, the infographic, if you will, it's just a table with chairs around it. And it talks really about DE&I and how all of our teammates can have a seat at the table with us. We want them to be heard. We want them to be empowered. We want them to, just have this whole brained experience with us where regardless of all of these different aspects that make us all unique, they can bring really their whole selves. So we have teammate resource groups, similar. A lot of other companies have these. They go by a lot of different names. They could be employee resource groups, affinity groups, whatnot. We've got a veterans group. It aligns very well. The work we do aligns very well with veterans. And the Carolinas, I'm sure you're familiar, we have like the most military bases in this quadrant of the U.S. between Virginia and North Carolina. We've got a ton of military bases. So we've got affinity groups or teammate resource groups that align to that DE&I, but they align to, what aligns to what we're trying to do as a company, who we can recruit because of the territory we sit in. So veterans makes good sense. We've got a lot here in our geography, and the work that we do really aligns very well. We have a young professionals teammate resource group. We want to make sure that we're evolving and growing and we're on track with, expectations of new generations coming into the workforce. We've got a women's leadership group. And we're going to be starting up 2 new groups this year as well. So we're going to be starting up a Hispanic group, just continuing to grow and evolve so that teammates can really see themselves, find themselves, be heard. And so there's ways that you can do it that's still honoring to our purpose. Mm-hmm. And, we definitely feel very comfortable in that space.
Actually, from that answer, what I hear you saying is if we stay true to who we are and what we believe, it's only natural to offer all of that.
That's exactly right.
You're leading through being a servant. You're leading through supporting others and lifting them up. In the foot washing example, you're putting yourself, you're doing things that nobody wants to do.
Serving
to support others, which I love.
It's that it comes back, which is why I started with that servant leadership piece. Like that is one those are not words on the wall to us. Like you will hear if you came in for a day, when our internship kicks off this summer and all our interns join us, they will hear about our purpose. They will feel it, but they will hear about that servant leadership. It is very prominent in how we speak and how we hold ourselves accountable to act. Now, again, we don't get it perfect. We have plenty of opportunity, but.
So I have a question that I didn't prompt in any of our outlines, but I'm so curious on the answer. So you're you're so not you, the company is incredibly structured from a servant leader standpoint. I hear such consistency no matter who I've talked to at Coke Consolidated, from the top down and bottom up. And yet, not only can you, at your own admission, feel like you can get better, you're not perfect, the organization, and you have such an awesome, I don't know, all these different programs and, get the best out of your time at Coke Consolidated type of environment and all these groups. But yet you're still forced at times to make tough decisions and let people go. You said, and then you're probably going to go back here, we have these non-negotiables, which is probably going to be your answer. I just want to make sure.
My answer.
But, how do you navigate it when it's close, where you're just like, you have this team member and, they're not necessarily breaking any of those, but they're not necessarily doing a good job or whatever.
Yeah.
Like when it's not so black and white is where I'm looking at.
Yeah.
We're just, whatever the circumstances are, we're not going to nitpick any of them. How do you handle that and be servant leader, godly, above reproach? How does Coke handle that?
So I will tell you, Paul, honestly, one of the things that comes at my HR group frequently is we almost can expect it. Anytime we are parting ways with a teammate, we will get often the phrase of, how are you being God honoring?
Yes.
How are you serving your purpose by letting me go? I've got kids. I'm not going to be able to put food on the table, and it does come back to those kind of core values that I talk about.
Yeah.
And the first one is, really I said is accountability. And so, all right, well, so I'll talk about the very black and white example. So, we have policy. Yeah. So if you have so many tardies, if you no-show for so many days, if you bring in, if you fail a drug test at work, like there are policies. So one of the things you heard me say is we expect people to be able to show up and be safe. And so some of those, if you do anything that is not going to allow us to maintain that safe workplace, if you bring a gun into the workplace, if you show up and you're intoxicated, like we have an accountability to the other teammates into this company. And so the ones that are very, very black and white, it's like, listen, we had a commitment together. We have policies and you clearly have broken one. And so this is not about being non-God honoring, or, not, I'm sympathetic and empathetic to the situation this puts your family in now, but this is the decision that you have made.
Yeah, they did it.
And, where I talk about, maybe it's drugs or alcohol, where I do feel, it's tough, how can you kind of sleep at night sometimes and stuff like that? It's like, well, we've got chaplains in that plant or wherever this teammate was. We've got chaplains available for you to talk to about these. I feel very, very good in the benefits that we have stood up, both for teammates that are on our benefits plan and for teammates that are not on our benefits plan, to go talk about drug and alcohol. And so, I feel like we can back that up, that we've given them some resources to be able to find ways maybe out of some of these situations. But in the gray ones where it's like, are you doing your job? Are you not? Are you leading the way we want you to? Are you not? Was this your fault? Was this the customer's fault? It can be very gray. We will come back to coaching, development, putting somebody to go right along with the teammate for the day, giving them a helper for the day. Can we correct? Can we coach? Can we move you?
And this is happening before a firing or
that's right. When it starts to happen, we really want to lean in and say, how can we help serve this teammate and move them into a different role? Is this just not a fit for them? Do they need to take a step back? Did they get into that first line supervisor role? They were an unbelievable individual contributor. So you make them a supervisor and they're just not meant to lead people. Can you come on back and be an individual contributor? We want to try to find that win-win. And sometimes we find it and sometimes we don't. But what we hold ourselves accountable to is let's try to find it first before we call this quits. because it's God honoring and it's purpose honoring. But from a financial standpoint, it's way cheaper to keep a current teammate that has already been onboarded and gone through everything and just tweak the areas that are amiss than to separate, start the whole process again, have that route, have that role, have that job on the manufacturing line sit open for however long it takes us to fill it, bring somebody in, take them through their onboarding, take them through their training.
Exhausting.
It's exhausting for the talent recruitment team. It's exhausting for the manager because most likely the manager is stepping out from leading people and having to fill in some of that individual contributor role and do that work. So it exhausts the whole process. And so it's always better to honor our purpose and financially from a business standpoint to try to salvage teammates and keep them and coach them up. And that's how we serve.
So I'm going to switch gears a little bit here. And this goes back to the comment I made earlier about from the bottom up, from the top down, I see a lot of consistency in how you all talk and how the leaders approach their job and their role. And if there's probably the top two issues that I've seen, I've worked in corporate America. I've been in work more than I've been out of work my life, right? And the two big issues that I see, first typically is communication.
Always.
And the second one is typically temperature. Like someone's hot, here. Someone's cold. Yeah.
It is warm in here. Oh.
Yeah. So those are the two typically, it's always communication breakdown or cascading communication, where it started and where it ended, the message got convoluted. How does Co-Consolidated effectively communicate and install its Christian values in corporate culture, in your culture? How does it do that consistently without breaking its commitment to its faith? Now, when I say I know it's personal, all goes back to Frank and family, but at the end of the day, it's company, it's corporate. Yeah. How do you guys do that so well? I feel like you've done it very well. Yeah. How do you do that? What's your secret?
Well, here's one thing I want to share with your listeners that may help kind of articulate who we are. So I started this conversation talking about, we're 14 states, including Washington, D.C. We have 17,000 teammates. We service, 60 million consumers in that territory. But we haven't always been that big. So what are we in 2024? So I'd say back to 2014, we were 1/3 of that size, both from a number of teammates. Wow. And from a geography standpoint. 2004.
Is that when you came on board?
I started in 2013.
Oh.
Yeah.
Seeing the connection.
No. No connection there. No connection there. So through a series of refranchise agreements with the Coca-Cola Company, and I talk about bottlers aren't bought, they're sold. You had some ownerships deciding that they were ready to sell, and just through a very complex series of transactions. From 2014 to 2018, 2019, we tripled in size. And so our oldest acquisition, which was in 2014, is now 10 years old. Our newest acquisition, let's say that was in 2019, is, 5 years old. And so that culture of purpose and servant leadership that's so strongly rooted in, I'll call that legacy, 1/3 of our company, but we've got 2/3 of the company that's still kind of coming on board. So anywhere from 10 years to 7 years to 6 years to 5 years. And so you think about that 5-year group and something so powerful and impactful and strong as that purpose statement, like, are they all the way there as the legacy group is? And we don't like to use that word legacy. So I'm going to use it that time and I'm not going to use it again. But no, the answer is no. But we work at it, and we work at it really hard and really intentional each and every day. So I wanted to set that stage for kind of still modeling, like, we're not perfect and we don't have this nailed, but we're intentional about it. We know who we are. We know who we want to be, and we know where we want to go. And so that intentionality, I think, is the secret sauce to it, is we focus on it. We don't just kind of put it up on the wall and walk by it and kind of give it a high five, once a year. Like it comes about in everything we do through our communities, not just internally, but externally as well. The team there does so much. We do so much inward, but we also do so much outward. So to your question on how do you communicate that out? And I agree, like the communication is key. And I think 90% of the issues we run into, there was a glitch in the communication somewhere along the way. It is played out tried and true so many times over. So, yeah. So one thing I will tell you that we do that may make some of your listeners go is we open our meetings in prayer. And so,
all meetings?
Like a shift changeover meeting at the very, very front line, the first shift that just worked 5 a.m. till noon is switching over to second shift that's going to work 12 to 8. Probably not at that level, but leadership meetings and not just at corporate, like out into the field, out into the branches. I'd say more of a staff meeting, a leadership meeting, not just kind of like a shift switch over. But we make, it's optional. And so we'll start everything we say, if you're so inclined, please join me, so that people know that they have the ability to opt out. And so if you don't want to fold your hands and you don't want to bow your head, you don't have to. The consistency, too, of starting those meetings in prayer is if you know that we're going to do that and that has become common and you are not aligned with that, go ahead and step out for the first 5 minutes of the meeting and then come on in. And so we never force.
And I'm sure that happens.
And they should. And there is nothing wrong with that because, again, we're publicly traded. We welcome everybody into our workplace. They don't have to honor God in all they do to come work for us. They don't have to. That is not a barrier to entry, but those 10 values are. If you are not going to act and to lead and to be that way. And so I think that understanding who we are, not hiding from it. We talk about it right at the interview. We talk about it right at hiring. Like we don't kind of try to hide that purpose statement. Like it comes across the table. So there's no confusion. Like this is what you're walking into. And if you don't feel like you can be part of this when you don't have to participate, but it's going to be around you, that's a decision you got to make. And so that helps us not have to hinder or change or alter our communication that we put out because we've started kind of cradle to grave, you'll call it. Like that purpose statement is present before you walk in the door all the way till you retire. We're not perfect. Lots of opportunity, but that's the vision.
You can see why the company is so awesome. All right, answer me one last question, and we're going to bring this thing to a close. And this, you might have to channel your inner Frank here, but what advice would you give to business owners, leaders out there who are trying to navigate their personal beliefs in a secular corporate world? Like trying to model what you guys have done so amazingly well at Coca-Cola Consolidated, just on a much smaller or mid-sized level. What would your advice be?
So I'd say two things. From an organizational standpoint, if you haven't attended T Factor, it's worth start there. Go in. If you're a decision maker that can really impact change in your organization and you want to impact change, sitting through T Factor can be very eye-opening around understanding what, how, why, and just how it can quite honestly relate back to the bottom line. Personally, whatever kind of company you're working in, if that's present, if it's not, and I'll kind of focus on if it's not present, and maybe if some of your listeners don't feel comfortable being so forward and being so open and honest of that belief in the workplace, there's a lot of ways you can do it and how you can emulate the teachings of the Bible and how Jesus challenged us all to lead and live by not touting the Bible, but by leading through those values. And so if you're a leader around being an empathetic leader who supports teammates, who puts others above self, who is truly a servant leader, you can model those values of Christianity and still feel like you are really bringing your whole self to work. I think that that's the amazing part of it, is you can find so many ways to take, I talk about our values of accountability, courage, and conviction, but even think about like the fruits of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. You can bring all of that, whether you're an individual contributor or a leader, and you're emulating how Jesus wants.
And you don't
to
have
lead.
to be perfect.
And none of us are.
I know.
None of us are.
That was the point.
So
how does someone find out about T Factor? Where do they go? Do you have any contact info?
Yeah. So, they can, reach out to me. We have a head for T Factor. So again, Christine Motherwell. It's Christine Motherwell at CoConsolidated.com. We have a head of our T Factor. His name is Mark Whitaker. Amazing movie.
What is the movie? I just heard about this. The Informant.
The Informant. I think Matt Damon played him in the movie.
True story. The guy who leads T Factor at Co-Consolidated
spent much time in jail.
Which he'll tell you why.
So I hope that's a little bit of a catch and piques your interest. But yeah, you can just Google it. T Factor, Transformation Factor, Co-Consolidated, and you will find the information you're looking for.
And what was the guy's name again?
Mark Whitaker.
And he's incredible. High energy, fun guy.
High energy, a servant leader that I would aspire to be in this lifetime, but really came to Jesus and came through very, very hard life lessons. And so amazing story.
And then he's taking what he's learned and the mistakes he's made and pouring it into change in the life of leaders who do crazy good things in their businesses.
Yeah. And that power of multiplicity and his passion and Frank's passion, have no doubt about it, to take this time to invest in T Factor, to create this and continue to want to push it and grow it. They are pushing to make businesses, North Carolina, the United States, and the globe to grow Christianity. It's that power of multiplication.
And Co-Consolidated is sheltering all of the costs because they don't charge for this.
That's exactly right. There's no
So
charge.
he's paying this team. Frank Koch is paying this team, created this entire thing, which is time, money, and resources, and he's giving it away.
For good, for God, and for growth.
I love it. So amazing. Any last words?
No, I just thank you. It's always so just easy flowing. So, I've got pages of notes here that I was very ready to be scripted. If you asked me questions about this, I had, but just to talk about something that I'm so personally passionate about. And I feel so honored to get to do each and every day. I work really, really hard. I hustle really, really hard, but it doesn't feel like it because it's just so rewarding. So to get to come and talk to you about that, it was just really a well-spent morning. So I appreciate it.
Awesome. I'm so thankful and happy that you were here. So go grab a Coke somewhere. I don't drink a whole lot of soda, but when I do, I always drink
everything in moderation. We've got a whole portfolio, Paul, whatever you need.
Well, thanks so much. This has been great. I'm sure I'll have you back at some point.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Paul.